Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make a quilt called Emilia. It uses a layer cake, and I have this very pretty one. It's colorful fabrics from Wyndham, and it's called Clover and Dot. The only other things we need some black for these triangles in here, and then see that shadowy area in the border there? And in the sashing, we're going to use this gray, and it's a batik, but I think that'll make a good shadow. Then we need a solid white for the very outside border. We don't need every one of these squares. We only need 36 of them. And the pattern shows the colors grouped in fours. So there's 4 blues, 4 corals, 4 greens. You, of course, could mix them all up, but I'm going to stick with that theme there. So I'm going to pick these out in groups of 4. I've got the squares sorted into stacks of 4, and I'm going to show you how to cut these. Let's start with this blue one here. I've got all 4 pieces. You can cut them individually. I'm going to use all 4 at the same time, and I'm going to line this up on my cutting board. So I've got a line. This is kind of a thicker line, and it's going from corner to corner. Now we're not cutting on that line. We're going to cut a 1/4 inch away from that line. This is a little unusual, but what you want to do is put your 1/4 inch mark up there on the line and line it up down here on the line, and then just go ahead and make your cut. So we've got some bigger triangles with a little extra on there and some smaller triangles. Next step is to cut out the black, white, and gray. And I can't give you the exact sizes because it's not my pattern, but Robin Pickens patterns are very easy to follow, and they have very nice cutting diagrams included in them. All right, everything is cut, and we're ready to get started with the sewing. The first step is to take one of these large black triangles and one of these smaller layer cake triangles, and we're going to put these right sides together, and we're going to stitch along this edge. But before we do that, I need to draw a line right across the middle here. It's easiest if you line up this cut edge along a line on your cutting board and then slide it over so that that tip is on a line, and then we can take our ruler and put it all the way along this line and then draw a light line on the back of it. I'm using a pencil. It will show up enough for me to see when I'm stitching, but I don't know if you can see it very well. Oh yeah, you can. I've got my pieces right sides together, lined up on this long edge, and I'm just going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from the edge. And then stitch along both sides of that drawn line just a 1/4 inch away from it. Now my presser foot is just about a 1/4 inch, so it's real easy to stitch it. Next step is to cut along the drawn line first. We're going to make 3 cuts here, so I'm just going to do that one. Then we're going to take each one of these and cut them in half. So line up the cut edge on a line on your cutting board and slide it over till that point is on a line, and then cut it in half. And what we end up with is 4 half square triangles. So this is a different method for making them than I've ever used, but it's convenient because we only had half of a layer cake to work with. Okay, those are all cut. We got 4 from each set of big triangles, but we only need 3. We had an extra, so I just put it aside. Now all of these need to be trimmed down to 3.5 inches. So you can either iron them open, like I've got here, and then trim it down. It's pretty easy to trim like this. Just line it up on your cutting board. And be sure to trim off some from each triangle. You don't want to line it up like this because you'll be trimming both sides from one fabric. You want to line up these two edges here and then just trim it down, and it will be exactly 3.5 inches, and they're very easy to work with when they're perfectly trimmed like this. So you trim off the two edges and then get that last little dog ear. But there's another method you can use to trim these. If you have a strip tube ruler or a triangle ruler with the inch marks on it, you can use this to make your half square triangles the correct size. So I'm just going to put the 3.5 inch line on the stitching line, and then I can trim off two sides like this, and that's a little bit easier for me. Then I will iron it afterward and just get those dog ears. Either method works. Use whichever one you like the best. Now I'm going to take 3 matching half square triangles and 3 of these black triangles to the sewing machine. We're simply going to make a bigger triangle with these. So we've got these 3 with the print all pointing down, and then we're going to fill in with 3 triangles here. So we're just going to make a row and then put the rows together. So we'll start with these 2 pieces. We always line up the top edges here and let that little bit of extra triangle hang off the edge. So line those up. And this, I like to put it back, grab the next piece so I know I've got it correct. And these 2 are the same size, so that's easy to do. This row only has 2 pieces. Again, line up the top edges. Stitch down that side and put it back. Now, for pressing the seam allowances, we're just going to go every other one. So we're going to press the first row all this way. So I'm just going to use my fingernail, press everything in place. Same thing here, press it down. So that means on this row, we want to press the opposite way. And now we'll sew these 3 rows together. So I'll put this one on top, line up these corners, match the intersection, and the seam allowances are going in opposite directions, making it easy to get it to match and helping it to lay nice and flat. And then there's just that one last piece that goes there. And we'll press both of these seam allowances to the right. Then we'll take it to the ironing board and give it a final press. We've got a nice patchwork triangle there. When you do your ironing, be sure to iron with the grain of the fabric. So we don't want to iron like that. There's a tendency to want to do that because that's the way the patchwork is shaped. But I'm going to go sideways or up and down, just sideways and up and down. Don't go this way because you can stretch it and it will distort a little bit. So try to keep ironing just this way and just that way. Those are all done. I ironed them all, and then I trimmed off the little dog ears that were sticking off here. Next step is to make some half square triangles with these 2 blocks. So I'm just going to mark the back side of the lighter one, put a line right across the middle, and we'll take a pair of these to the machine. We'll line up all the edges and stitch on both sides of the drawn line. This is the traditional way of making half square triangles. Stitching down one side, down the second side, and now we'll cut it in the middle and iron it open. These squares also get trimmed down just a little teeny bit. We're trimming to 3.5 inches. And then all we have to do, second side here, and then just cut off that last little dog ear there. Take one of the half square triangles and 2 of these matching triangles, and we're going to take them to the machine. This is very similar to the bigger triangles we made earlier. We're just going to stitch one on and then the other one on. Those are all stitched up, and I did iron them and trim that dog ear off. Next, we're going to work with all of these triangles. So we're going to get 4 of one color group. I'm going to use red, and I'm getting the matching triangle blocks here. And we're going to lay this out like so. So let's put these 2 in opposite corners because they're the same fabric. That will go there. Then we're going to take the patchwork block that matches, but we're going to put it on the opposite end of the block. So this one is going to end up with the same fabric because I've got it in both spots. This one will go over here, this one will go here, and we're going to stitch these pairs all together along that long edge. All we have to do is line up these 2 edges. You'll find that this plain triangle is a little bit oversized. So I'm just going to line up this long edge and stitch along here 1/4 inch from the cut edge there. And I'll take this over to the ironing board and cutting board before I open it up, because if I finger press this, it's going to stretch it a little bit. But you can see how easy it is to get this perfectly pointed right there because you can see where the stitching is. So if you just drive right over that, when you open this up, it'll have a nice strong corner point there. The easiest way to iron these is with the patchwork down, and then I'm just going to peel it open and gently make sure that seam is open there. Well, the seam allowances are going that way. What I mean is there's no valley here, it's all flat. Then I'm going to use the iron. I like to use it dry first, make sure it's all open, then add the steam. And now we're going to trim it down to size. To trim, line up these patchwork edges on 2 lines on your cutting board and just trim off that large triangle. Sometimes just a little bit gets trimmed off there, and then you want to make sure to keep it flat that you get any of those dog ears trimmed off as well. I've got all of those ironed up and trimmed. The next step is to take some of these big rectangles, and we're going to take these 2 of these units here, and we're going to pin them on. And it's a little bit different. I haven't seen this method before, but we're going to move this down 1 inch. So I'm going to use my ruler here, put it right on the 1 inch line there. So that's where this goes this way. And then we're going to slide it over so it's 6.5 inches from the end. So let's just put this right there We're going to line this up so it's 6.5 here and also 6.5 here on the bottom. Sometimes these get distorted when you iron them, so it's possible that it's curved over a little. So you just need to scooch it back so that it's ending up right there on that line. And then we're going to pin it carefully along here. And I'm going to put in 3 or 4 pins along here because I don't want it moving at all. And I'm pinning right along the line where I'm going to stitch. We're going to use the same method to pin one on the far side over here. What we want to do is stitch a 1/4 inch from this edge right here. So I'm just going to carefully start stitching and take out the pins before I get to them. And what we want is when we open this up over here and iron it, we want so that all of these edges will line up. And that's how you know you did it correctly. So if they line up, go ahead and do all the rest of them. If you fold this over and it ends up like here or it's crooked or something, it's no big deal. A couple of mine that happened to. Just take the stitching out, readjust it, and do it over again. Fold these pieces over, iron them into place, and then trim off that extra back layer. That one's all done. I have to make several of those, and then we have some smaller rectangles, some of which only get those pieced pieces on the right and some on the left, and we've got several different sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and get all those finished up so we can lay out the quilt. Before we lay everything out on the table, the pattern has us make several of these sashing cornerstone rows, and then we make the border rows. So that's these piece units here with a little bit in the middle. So I'm going to get these stitched up, and then we can see what everything looks like. Everything is ready for laying out the quilt, and I think I'll start with these outer borders because that will give me some sort of anchor. So this one is going to go along the bottom. Next, I'm going to take some of the patchwork blocks. Let's start in the corner here. So we've got 4 blues, but they're not going to go right up next to themselves like that. They're going to go up to here, but there's going to be a little space between them because we've got sashing rows and a few extra pieces of sashing to add. There, that's all the blocks roughly in place. And then these pieced sashing sections, they will go between, and these little squares here will end up right in the middle of all of the sets of 4. So let me put another one of these rows down. The last step is to put these sashing pieces that go between these patchwork blocks. So once I get all of these laid out, all I have to do now is make all of these rows, sew the rows with the sashing rows, and put the borders on, and everything's going to line up and match, and it'll be really easy to get it stitched together. Then we'll get it loaded onto the quilting machine. The quilt is all loaded up, and we need to pick a thread color. There's lots of choices here, and it will drastically change the way the quilt will look. This orange, it really doesn't show up much in the patchwork, but it's going to show a lot in the borders. That might be kind of fun. There's more blue in the patchwork than any other color, and that again is going to blend in pretty well here, show a little bit more on the edges. This is kind of a gray-green. That one just looks like a hint of color the way that foggy batik looks. Gold is a color I use a lot because it blends pretty well. It is going to show a little on the black, and show a little bit there. The last choice would be this almost white gray. So let's see. It's going to show the most in the black. It's not going to show in the borders. I think I'm going to go with the light silver gray. For the quilting pattern, I'm using bubble play. It's just circles of different sizes, and I think that will look good against all the triangles we have in the patchwork. The Emilia quilt is all done. I've got to say, I love the shadowing in this outer border. The pattern is just really, really awesome the way it's all engineered. So I made the big size. The pattern does come with a smaller size, and it's got a different kind of shadowing around the edge and only 4 blocks, but they're both very, very nice. The circly quilting, that looks really good. It's very unobtrusive, but you can see it here. It's very cool. I used red binding, and I used a colorful print on the back. It's not one that's in the top, but the colors look like they match, and it kind of has the same theme. It's 76 by 76 inches. Very satisfying to make. Thanks so much for watching our video today. We hope you enjoyed it. Now, at the end of every video, we do a giveaway. Today's giveaway is a quilt called Chain Link, and we did this a couple months ago in a video to show you how to make your own. But today you can win this one, which is made with Hoffman batiks from a jelly roll called Chai Tea. It's very easy to enter. Just go to the link right below this video that says giveaway and put in your name and your email address, and you might be the lucky winner. Now, if you like our tutorials and you want to support us, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out. Happy quilting!